No, I've said this before, that people who commit sexual assault, especially against children, like, I just don't think that they can be rehabilitated mentally. Like, I just think that they're just gone. They don't need to be in our society. They present a danger to our society. So here's the thing. I think that people believe that this man deserved an opportunity, like a second chance. And I want y'all to hear this story. It's relatively short, but I want y'all to hear what this fool did to people that absolutely did not deserve this. Let me give you a disclaimer before we get into some of the wild details. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I want y'all to take a look at this man's face. I want y'all to look at this face. This is like this old, like, some people just look like they have a sex offenderish face. You said exactly what I was thinking in the chat. I love y'all. That's why I love y'all. He just has a sex offender's face, like a my no doesn't mean no looking face, right? Like, he just looked like either we having sex or I'm having sex. That's what his face looks like. Like, I'm sorry, I wouldn't trust this man around my dog, my cat, my turtle. I wouldn't trust him around a bald eagle. He probably would stick his disgusting, disease-ridden junk in anything that got a heartbeat. This SOB, and I'm getting this information from Heavy.com. Heavy does real good on their articles too, so shout out to Heavy, for real. Story out of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is taking a huge L for this. Jesse L. McFadden was a registered sex offender. Registered. So they know this. Who murdered 6 people, including 5 juveniles and his wife, on May the 1st of 2023. First of all, you'd have to ask, who loves a sex offender, and how does a sex offender get married? His wife? Really? That's a joke. That is a joke. That can't be real. He couldn't have actually been married, right? He couldn't have actually had a girlfriend on top of being a registered sex offender, right? Huh. So according to the Okmulgee police chief, 2 of the girls were spending a night with McFadden's stepdaughter, according to Chief Joe Prentice speaking in a news conference. McFadden had been a registered sex offender since 2020 and was convicted of rape in 2003, according to Oklahoma court records, which means that you could have did a background check. Look this up, and since 2003, 17 years, you would have known this by a simple background check. But I think they knew. I just think they didn't give a crap. This alleged wife. What? McFadden had a trial date in Muskogee County set for Monday on charges of soliciting sexual conduct, communicating with a minor by the use of technology, and child pornography complaint, Tulsa World reported. Janet Mayo wrote on Facebook, "I'm going to say this again. My daughter Holly, who did not know the truth about Jesse McFadden, and now she and my grandbabies are dead. Stop bashing her." I wish they would stop saying the word bashing. I hate that word. It's a stupid word. She also wrote, "My daughter loved her children, and yes, she's married, and yes, she married the man who killed them, but she was fooled by his charm. But. He's a sex offender, but they trusted him, but you were charmed by him, but if you ask me, I'm pretty sure she knew and she still didn't care. by saying that I was charmed. That's an excuse. Remember how we just said that we were going to get rid of the excuses? That's an excuse. I was charmed. Well, I thought in general, I thought women were smart, women were strong, and women were independent and doing the damn thing. But you can be charmed, really? How stupid would that look if a husband said I was charmed by my wife? She just blinded all the common sense out of me. Like that don't like it just that's an excuse. It's irresponsible, and I will never ever accept that. Ever. Here's what we need to know. The Okmulgee Police Chief Joe Prentice said in a news conference that Webster and Brewer were reported missing on Monday morning of May 1st of 2023. He received a request to activate a violent crime task force, which obtained a search warrant for the property where 7 bodies were found. McFadden was renting that property, Prentice said. I believe McFadden shot all of the other descendants, he said. Autopsies were conducted, and the victims and their injuries are, according to Prentice, brace yourself for this: Ivy Webster, 13 years old, 1 gunshot wound to the head. Brittany Brewer, 16 years old, 1 gunshot wound to the head. Riley Allen, 17 years old, 1 gunshot wound to the head. Tiffany Guess, age 13 years old, 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Michael Mayo, 15 years old, 2 gunshot wounds to the head. Holly McFadden, 35 years old, 3 gunshot wounds to the head. Jesse McFadden, 39 years old, appears to have shot himself in the head, according to Prentice. Holly McFadden was the suspect's wife. Allen, 17 years old, Mayo, 15 years old, and Guess, 13 years old, were Holly McFadden's 3 children. And this son of a bitch, convicted as a sex offender since 2003, got all the access to children he could ever stand. How does that work? We're not going to keep our children away. You know what we're going to do? We're going to put our children close to his possession or in his possession. For what intents and what purposes? To be honest, if you ask me, y'all tell me if I'm wrong about saying this, one could deduce that maybe his wife participated in this illicit behavior, including her own children. How else can you know or should know that someone is a sex offender since 2003? And if you didn't know that, then you're just a fucking idiot. But if you can't figure out and know that this man shouldn't be around kids, and you invite it, you don't say anything, you don't stop it, you don't prevent it, then people ended up missing and dead to this tune, and you didn't know anything, I'm sorry, that just makes no sense. And the reason why there haven't been any charges is beyond me, because I think there should be charges and an investigation going on with her too. I think that's impossible for the wife to have not known what was going on. How many of y'all agree with me? Let's keep going. The 2 girls, Webster and Brewer, were friends with Tiffany Guess and were spending the night at her house. Ivy, Brittany, and Riley were found separately approximately 100 to 150 yards apart from each other and about a quarter of a mile southeast of McFadden's residence. He said there was no evidence that they ran away. There was no evidence they ran away. The other 4 victims were found together about 450 450 to 500 yards east and a little bit south of where the girls were found, adding that there was no 911 call made and no one was tied up. The 9mm handgun used in the murders was purchased by Holly McFadden. This is according to Heavy.com, not my words. Let me repeat what I just said. Somebody please tell me y'all heard what I said. Let me read that again. The 9mm handgun used in the murders was purchased by Holly McFadden, his wife. Adding that the bodies were moved and were all found outside, according to Prentice. The bodies were discovered on the property where Jesse McFadden resided, Sheriff Eddie Rice told the Tulsa World. News anchor Aaron Christie wrote, They're supposed to go swimming on the ranch in McAllister, but never showed. No one has heard Ivy, Brittany, Tiffany's two brothers, Jesse, or his wife, Holly. I spoke to Ivy's mother, who said that Ivy's Life 360, a phone tracking service, was turned off. The teens were reportedly staying with Jesse, Holly McFadden, and her daughter, Tiffany. It makes me wonder, let me see, was she one of the deceased? Holly McFadden was found with 3 gunshot wounds. Maybe she did participate, and maybe that's why he killed her. Now you can't charge her. I refuse to believe that she didn't know what was going on. I just refuse to believe that. The teens were reportedly staying with Jesse and Holly McFadden and her daughter, Tiffany. OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, spokesman Gerald Davison said in a news conference there were 7 bodies found this afternoon by Violent Crimes Task Force. They were found on the property in Henrietta, Oklahoma. They were on the property, on the land, said Davison, where the bodies were found. He also could not comment on whether it is being investigated as a murder-suicide. Rice said in a news conference that authorities believe that there is no other threat to the community, he said. He added that the community had never seen anything of this magnitude. I guess we could skip that part. Brittany Brewer and Ivy Webster were listed as endangered missing people earlier in that day. I'm going to skip some of this because it gets a little bit lengthy. You can go to heavy.com to read the rest of this article. Jesse McFadden, whose occupation was listed as an independent contractor, was convicted of first-degree rape. Convicted. Let's go to the next part. Holly McFadden was described as an absolutely loving mother, which I'm going to have to disagree with that. They wrote a long little piece about her. I'm going to skip that. Jesse McFadden texted a previous victim, I told you I wouldn't go back. And he's talking about wouldn't go back to jail. A woman who was a victim in a soliciting case involving Jesse McFadden says that she received a text the night before the bodies were found. I did exactly what I promised I would do when I go out. Let me read it again. I did exactly what I promised I would do when I get out. I guess that means I got a marketing job, making great money, and was being advanced there. Been there 2 years now and making a great life like I promised I would do with you, he wrote. Let's keep going. Now it's all gone, he continued. I told you I wouldn't go back. This is all on you for continuing this. He was accused of sexting an underage girl in 2017 and was released from prison in 2020. He's a pedophile, and people need to know they need to find him and lock him up. Justin Webster, Ivy's dad, told Fox 23. Let me give you guys the fair usage. I got a couple of news videos. I know what I'm saying might feel like it's wrong, but just tell me when I've said something that doesn't follow logic or is factually inaccurate. Here we go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Please share this story and hit that thumbs up. It'll bring more attention to it. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to try to skip through some of these news stories, though. Here we go.
The search for two missing teenage girls in Oklahoma has led to the discovery of 7 bodies. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation says the girls were reportedly seen traveling with a 39-year-old convicted sex offender. Authorities say the search resulted in the discovery of 7 bodies on a rural property near the town of Henrietta, roughly 80 kilometers south of Tulsa. An Amber Alert for the missing girls was canceled Monday. It's believed the girls are 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer. No other details have been released at this time.
There were 7 bodies found this afternoon by the District 25 Violent Crimes Task Force, and they were found on the property here at the scene. There's no suspect at large that we are looking for right at this moment, so that's the most important thing, is that there's no one else out there that we're looking for at this time. So, there's no threat to the community.
I'm just lost. It hasn't sunk in yet. I still think she's going to walk in right behind me or walk up next to me. It still hasn't sunken in that she's gone. I mean, they're just words can't describe.
She always helped me. She helped me in my freaking paperwork in the office. She was very bright and beautiful young girl. She always played with her little sister, and I don't know how I'm going to tell her, because she's like, Brittany's lost, Brittany's missing. And I got to tell a 4-year-old that she's gone. And I don't even know how to do that.
I knew Ivy really well. She was a great person. Great personality.
A lot of crying. Really sad. I mean, only daughter in a house full of boys, so obviously my mom's super upset. Horrible. And truly tragic. Especially because we've known this family for like 2 years now.
Thanks for joining us here at 10. I'm Jolene Cheney.
And I'm Kevin Ogle. And tonight we're learning more details about that gruesome murder scene. 6 people killed in Henrietta earlier this week. A mom, her 3 children, and 2 of their friends all shot and killed. The killer then killing himself. A total of 7 bodies were found. News 4's Kaitor K has more details from law enforcement. Kaitor?
The details are extremely difficult to hear. Okmulgee's police chief says all 6 victims had gunshot wounds to the head.
The evidence is that Jesse McFadden murdered 6 people and then killed himself. Beyond that, I don't know what his thought process was.
New disturbing details in a case that's horrified the state of Oklahoma and beyond. Okmulgee Police Chief Joe Prentice painting a clearer picture about the 7 bodies found on a rural property in Henrietta on Monday. Evidence has led them to believe convicted rapist and registered sex offender Jesse McFadden shot his 3 stepkids in the head at his home, as well as 2 teenage girls that were spending the night with his stepdaughter. The chief also saying McFadden shot his wife Holly and himself.
Holly McFadden suffered 3 gunshot wounds to the head, and Jesse McFadden appears to have shot himself in the head.
After 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer went missing on Sunday, law enforcement obtained a search warrant for McFadden's home the following day. Southeast of the actual residence, they found the girls' bodies at a creek near the body of 17-year-old Riley Allen, and several hundred feet southeast of that, in a heavily wooded area, the bodies of McFadden, his wife, 15-year-old Michael Mayo, and 13-year-old Tiffany Guess.
Without going into a lot of detail, that scene appeared to be staged to me. I think the bodies had been moved from where they were originally killed.
Chief Prentice saying they still don't know the motive for the killings or the events that led up to them, emphasizing to the community that they'll never get all the answers to this indescribable tragedy.
So an important warning before we go any further. This next story involves a rape survivor who describes her attack, and it may not be suitable to all viewers.
The man convicted of raping her is now accused of killing 6 people before killing himself. Jesse McFadden was convicted of rape in 2003, and tonight the victim from 20 years ago says she has guilt about what happened at his Henrietta home last week. She now wants to come forward with her story. News 4's Kaylee Olivas is on the story tonight.
Well, in our research, we found this letter Jesse McFadden wrote to a judge pleading for a lesser sentence in his 2003 rape conviction. In the letter, he says he could be a better person, that he wanted a chance to start a new life outside of jail. But the victim in his case says she doesn't believe a word he wrote. And last week's murder-suicide is a prime example of that.
It's just crazy that this happened. Like, I'm pissed, and I'm sad, and I'm mad.
It's been a culmination of feelings for Crystal Strong in the last week. She has known Jesse McFadden since she was a teenager. She feels like she could have stopped him from killing 5 kids and his wife.
I could have drove there and I could have warned people. I would have put flyers up. Like, I would have stopped this a long time ago. I feel somewhat guilty.
When she was 16 years old, she was raped by McFadden. Even though it happened in 2003, she remembers it just like it was yesterday.
I was tied up to all the metal poles of it. With just different bungee cords of my dad's, different like belts, just whatever he could find. A knife held to my throat because I was screaming so loud. He's like, if you don't quit screaming, he's like, B, I'm going to kill you right here.
Court records show then 21-year-old McFadden was convicted of rape and sentenced to 20 years in prison.
That's why I want to pause it right there. And let me say this, because some people didn't understand one of the stories that I talked about when I say hashtag it can't wait. This lady prosecuted. She was a girl at the time, so I don't know if it was her parents, but they were able to prosecute and get him 20 years in prison. Now I want y'all to hear this last part about how much time he actually did. So they did their part, as traumatizing as that is, and I'm not a person that victim shames or anything like that. I think people say that just to try to shut people up and not have an opinion. I'm not a victim shamer. But what I'm saying is, if you are privy to information that could save the life of somebody else and you don't say anything, even if you are victimized, I think it is so important for us not to wait 15 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years before we come out and say, hey, here's what happened to me. That's not what happened here, which is good because they did get a conviction, 20 years. That's what he was supposed to have done. But in situations where people wait so long to come out, and it allows these assaulters, these sexual assaulters, more opportunities to go out and make more victims. It can't wait that long. You're talking about a whole generation of other people that could be affected because you didn't come out and say something and nip this in the bud quicker for whatever reason it is. No matter how traumatizing it is or anything like that, we have to be strong enough to say something because it's bigger than just us. When we have a wolf in our society, we have to call it out, so more people aren't mauled and killed by the wolf. That's not what happened here. Again, just to specify, 2 different situations. They got a conviction, 20 years, but listen to how much time he actually did.
11 months later, and he's already writing a letter to the judge asking for a lesser sentence. In that letter, he talks about the pain he must have caused Strong and her family. Quote, no matter how much I'd like to, there's no changing the past. So he begged for a second chance to turn his life around, adding, quote, the longer that I'm locked up, the harder it is going to be for me to make a decent living. That judge denied his request, and so he stayed locked up, completing the required 85% of his sentence, which was only 17 years.
17 years, and you couldn't just finish out the 20? Like, I don't get that. I know that's pretty mandatory, but just there's really no reform in these people's heads. I don't think that people who are APE folks, especially in this brutal fashion, I don't think that, like, where's the counseling at? How did they fix this mentality in that 20 years in jail? All he had time to do in 17 years was think about that and probably think about revenge. When he got out, look at what happened.
Strong says McFadden should have served life in prison, and because he didn't, the judicial system has failed everyone involved.
God gives his strongest warriors the toughest battles, so maybe that's why everything happened the way it did. I don't know.
Well, as you can see behind me, the gate to Jesse McFadden's property is wide open, and there's no crime scene tape. So we asked the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation if it's still an active scene, but they wouldn't tell us anything other than it's still an ongoing investigation. In Henrietta, Kaylee Olive.
No, why would they leave it open like that? That's just weird. Maybe they feel like people ain't going to come out there or whatever the case is. Close that property off. But that's why I created the hashtag it can't wait. I'm going to take credit for that. It can't wait. And if you know that somebody has done something, don't let it take you 20, 30, 40 years to come out and say something. Because if a person is capable of doing something like that, they need to be held accountable right then and there. Plus, it becomes harder and harder to prove with any evidence at all besides just this person's word against this person's word. This man should have never been able to get out of prison. He should have never been able to get a wife. He should have never been able to have sex again. He shouldn't even have his reproductive organs. And look at what it cost us. That many people cost them all their lives. To the innocent people, excluding his wife, RIP to those lost souls. I just refuse to believe that his wife was innocent. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is a difficult story to listen to, but be honest. Let me know what you think. Lay it out there in the comment section.